On today's episode,
a globally recognized speaker and very successful lifestyle entrepreneur, Lewis Howes.
A lot of people don't know what their vision is. They don't know exactly what they want. And I'm very specific with my vision. Here's the direction I want to go. Now, it's not going to be a straight line.
When you look at what holds people back, it is universally fear.
Yeah.
And it may be fear of different things, maybe fear at different stages. You are putting yourself out there. You're telling people, dude, this was the dream that I had then, not the polished dream that I want you to think I had. It's really interesting.
I'm in control of my emotions. And as long as I'm allowing myself the permission to move forward with grace and make mistakes, then I feel comfortable with that.
it's time to go inside Quest with host Tom Bilyeu, president and co-founder of the second fastest growing private company in America. And now he's uncovering the universal principles of success.
I can tell you right now what principle number one is: follow your passion.
Inside Quest starts right now.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Inside Quest. We are the metal forge for the mind. Our goal is to bring on amazing human beings that can melt our brain and help us reshape our minds into something more powerful with more fortitude. And today's guest is one of those people. He is a two-sport All-American athlete whose professional football career was cut short by an injury, but he did not let that hold him back. He realized that he could set his determination, his intensity on anything that he wanted. So he set his sights on entrepreneurial success. And starting over from scratch, he literally built himself back up and carved an unconventional path, a path that started with him sleeping on his sister's couch because he couldn't afford his own apartment, and took him all the way to being a globally recognized speaker and very successful lifestyle entrepreneur. Please help me in welcoming a very powerful author, the man behind one of the most useful and successful podcasts that are out there today. He is the dean of the School of Greatness himself, Lewis Howes. Lewis, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So we've had the good fortune of meeting beforehand and really felt a connection right away. I listened to a ton of your podcasts, and this woman here in the front row, Erin Woodbury, said, Tom, you've got to meet this guy, Lewis Howes. He's amazing. And I'm like, Lewis Howes, the guy from the School of Greatness? Yes. And she's like, I know him. He's amazing. He's incredible. You guys are really click. Luckily, we had the chance to meet. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, man, for sure. The thing that I find so interesting about you is your success is literally born of a brutally painful, punishing obstacle that somehow you turned into the thing that became your success.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about in your upcoming book, The School of Greatness, which comes out this fall?
Yes, October.
I've read the first chapter. It's utterly amazing. Thank you for the advanced copy, by the way.
Yeah.
And in that, you talk a lot about having a powerful vision and how necessary that is for success. So I'm thinking of you here on your sister's couch. What was the vision that you had then? Nobody knows who you are. You're coming off of a defeat. You're having to change the whole course of your life. What did that vision look like?
I want to be able to make enough money to pay my own rent. That was the first vision. And I think a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, get caught up in these big ideas or big visions when they're in a small place to start and when they feel like it's too unattainable. And so I always talk about starting with something simple, the next step. And so for me, the next step was to get off the couch and feel like I was an adult.
Right.
Because I felt like a child eating macaroni and cheese. And that was the first step for me, was to, what do I need to do to make enough money to get to the next step?
It's interesting that you say that, and I actually really like the way that you phrase it. And it's, to me, the thing that makes you and a lot of the people that you bring onto your podcast so interesting is there are a lot of dreamers in the world, a lot of dreamers. But there are very few people who execute on that dream, and understanding that it's, in fact, there you have a quote, winners are made in the execution. I thought, oh man, that's so powerful, because that really is the gap between the people who finally get off the couch and the people that don't. And you talk a lot about the power of habits. So walk me through, what is your daily routine? What are the habits that you get into that are nice and simple, like your goal for getting off the couch?
For me, it's simple. I get up and I meditate for about 11 and a half minutes. I've got an 11 and a half minute guided meditation that I used when I was a sophomore in college. And right when I started using it, I broke these world records. I started getting better grades, which was not that hard because I was a D student. So I started getting C's. I just felt like I was in alignment with who I was in the world when I was doing that. I felt like my health was on point and everything was coming my way. And I think it's because I got grounded in the morning. And so I would listen to this guided meditation every morning for a few years in college, and then somehow I stopped because I felt like I was in a groove and I didn't need it anymore. And I stopped doing it for about 5 years, and there was a lot of ups and downs during those 5 years. So I just got back on it a few years ago, and again, it's picked up that having a sense of grounded in the morning. And I remember yesterday I was actually freaking out. I have this speaker coach. I have this big presentation I'm giving in front of 4,000 people at a conference in a week, and I'm talking about a topic I've never talked about before. And usually when I speak or present at an event, I'm very confident. I know what I'm saying. I've given the presentation a million times, but this is a brand new presentation. So for me, during this call, I was freaking out. I was so not grounded. I was stressed. I was very vulnerable. I was like, she said, why are you pacing back and forth? Because I was like, I was really stressed out. And she put me through this 5-minute guided visualization during that moment to get me centered on, okay, what's your vision? What's your intention? And when I went back to being grounded, I was able to be calm even in the stress. And so in the morning, I always start with that. I start with gratitude as well. So I'll get up and say thank you and say what I'm most grateful for, just to myself. And then I get up and I do something active for about 45 minutes in the morning. And then I go into making my bed and starting the day.
It's a pretty simple routine,
Yeah.
but hiding in there, I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff, and I kind of want to break it apart. So you talk about being grounded. When Tim Ferriss was on your podcast, he talked a lot about wanting to go barefoot out in the grass and being more grounded.
Yeah.
It's one of the things when you asked him, like, hey, what would you go back and change? And he said, you know, I would just spend more time outside barefoot in the grass.
Yeah.
And saying that specifically because he wanted to be grounded. So talk to me, what does that mean? Like when you say grounded, I don't know that a lot of people understand.
Sure. It's grounded in my vision. So the first step for me of getting to the next level, whether it's getting my own apartment, hitting a certain amount of subscribers, making my company in a certain amount in sales, whatever the next level is, losing 20 pounds, it's being clear on that vision and getting grounded on why I want to achieve that vision. And I think if my vision is to make a lot of money, then what's the purpose of that? If it's just to make money, to attract women, or for credibility, or whatever it is, then it's probably not going to be as a clear of a path. It's not going to be as smooth. Sure. When I'm grounded on my principles of why do I really want to make this happen? Why is it going to serve me, and how am I going to impact the most amount of people by doing this?
Is there a physicality to it for you? So, and I'll explain what I mean by that. So for me, I've talked on the show before about I don't do traditional meditation, I do what I call power meditation, right? I'm trying to focus all of my intent on something. But the thing I've never talked about before, and the thing that hides in between the lines is what I'm actually trying to do. Like there's so many things, right? When I'm not filming IQ, you have to think about my life. I've got 100 people coming to me, they're calling for my attention, they need 100 different things. I'm constantly having to shift my focus from one topic to the next, right? To touch all the things we have to move forward as a company. So for me, there's so many things that I'm trying to accomplish, all happening at once. I can literally feel my brain speed up. Now there's times where that speed's intoxicating and I feel like I can do a million things all at once. It feels fucking great, right? You feel like, dude, I am efficient. I'm making the most of every second. And then there's times where that speed, bear with me, that speed turns into noise. And then all I can hear is the revving of the engine. And to ground myself, to use meditation as a way of slowing down so that I can become more efficient again. And I'm terrible with cars, so forgive me for using a metaphor that I may not be able to carry all the way through here. But you know, if you run the car too close to the red for too long, things start to fall apart.
Yeah, of course.
And it actually becomes backing off a little bit so that you can maintain sort of a running speed. So when you say grounded, that's what I hear, right? It's a quieting of all the non-essentials.
Yeah. I think the challenge is a lot of people don't know what their vision is, and they don't know exactly what they want. They think they know, but they haven't really written it down. They haven't told the world, or at least their close network of friends. They're just like, well, I'm supposed to have a good job, or I'm supposed to be doing something inspiring, but they're not specifically saying it and specifically being intentional about it. And I'm very specific with my vision, and that allows me to stay grounded because I know here's the direction I want to go. Now, it's not going to be a straight line. It would be great if it was, but no matter what comes my way, I'm able to say yes or no, or able to dictate where my energy goes because of the vision. If I don't have a clear vision in mind, and I may never hit my vision. You may never hit 10 billion in sales. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Sure. You can work towards it, but things may come up that you can't help, right? But as long as I'm grounded and moving towards it, I'm in control of my emotions. that's what I'm in control of.
Right.
And you're in control of yours. And as long as I'm allowing myself the permission to move forward with grace and make mistakes, then I feel comfortable with that.
Let's talk about intention for a second. So in the School of Greatness, not just the podcast, but in your book, you really go into some detail that not being an athlete at the level that you are nowhere near. You said that the seasons that were the best were the ones where your intention was the clearest, and that as a team, you guys were writing down, like, this is what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And as a team, we agree on what we're trying to move towards. It was so specific, almost mundane in its specificity, and how you said that that led to the best success. Talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because if you want to achieve anything, I think, especially greatness, and whatever it is, a relationship, a business, whatever it may be, a sports team, the best teams we had was when the coaches sat us down the first day, before we even put on the pads or stepped on the basketball court, sat us down and said, what do we want to achieve this season? And we would literally spend 2 hours going over the number one goal. Is that to win the championship? Is that to go to the playoffs? You know, being realistic with what we had, but what's our vision? What do we want to achieve? So we all had this big dream that we aligned to as a team. And we'd make sure everyone was aligned to it first. Then we break down, okay, what's it going to take for us to get there? Then what's it going to take for each individual for us to get there? So we all had our own personal goals that we got to write down as well. When we all knew what we were working towards, it was much easier to get there.
Right.
As opposed to just saying, let's have a great game, or let's play our best.
Right.
But what are we working towards? So when we would go to practice, we would have an itinerary, specifically in football. We would have an itinerary of every 10 minutes what we were doing. So we're prepping, we're getting grounded and being intentional about getting ready to do defense or offense or whatever it may be. That for me was so powerful, to have a team set me up to win as an individual for my own personal goals with what I need to do every day. So in my life, I just applied those principles to my life when I was on my sister's couch.
Right.
I would write out my own itinerary every day. How much time am I going to work towards my health? When is that time? When am I allocating it towards? How much time am I working towards reaching out to mentors, to learning new information, to traveling to events, to consuming books, whatever it may be? How much time am I actually hustling? What's that time look like?
Right.
What am I doing to visualize, to do meditation? I had everything down every single day. And some people may say that's a little crazy or a little too much,
Right.
or too constrictive. But for me, I feel like if you want to achieve those results, you've got to be very intentional about every moment. And obviously there were days where I would relax and just hang out as well, but the more focused, the easier the opportunity to achieve.
Right. One thing, and this, guys, really goes out to you at home, one thing that I think makes you so fascinating is in your book, you put down what your dream was. Like, you wrote your dream and published it in the book as written back then. There was so much like raw vulnerability in that. It's really fascinating. And this is something, it's going to come across so weird, but I'm going to say it anyway. Hey, when you look at me now, like, you're actually looking at me. A lot of times the guest is playing a tape in their mind, and I'm as guilty as anybody. There's things you've said a lot, and so you're just sort of going through it. But you're kind of freaking me out. Like, we're really like looking.
Am I looking too much at you?
No, it's fucking rad. But I'm just saying,
Do
like,
people not look at you really?
not like that. I'm gonna be
They
honest
just look
with
over
you.
here and just let you talk?
No,
or what?
it's not. It's not weird. They're playing tapes, right? So they have the speeches they've given 1,000 times.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm triggering those speeches.
Yeah.
And so they're giving me those speeches. When I read your book, I was like, literally, one of the notes that I took was, this guy's fucking raw. Like, he's raw.
Yeah.
You are putting yourself out. I have the chills. You're putting yourself out there. You're telling people, dude, this was the dream that I had then, not the polished dream that I want you to think I had. This is a dream I actually had when I was on my sister's couch. And there's like a real like rawness to it, dude. Who are you to dream that dream, right? You're like some guy on a couch. You failed at football. You got injured. No more for you. And that dream was so big and just rad, dude. And there's something about the way that you actually are here with me talking for real. It's really interesting. And I know that's never going to come across, so I had to say it out loud so that people understand. Like, I get why people talk about you as a person off camera behind the podcast the way that they do, and they talk almost lovingly about you. It's really, really interesting because of that. So talk to us about the dream, if you remember what you put in the book, what it was, why you wanted to share such vulnerability.
Well, here's a couple things I wrote about and talked about early on when I was on my sister's couch. I remember just being broke, having no money, and feeling like a worthless human being. Like, literally, I felt worthless. I didn't know if I was worthy enough to make the money. My dad had gotten in a pretty bad car accident the year prior where he wasn't really the same person anymore and he had to sell his company. So I didn't really have a father figure to mentor me and to have a fallback plan of like going to work with him or getting that support. And I remember thinking, do I have enough talent and skills to make money? I knew I could work for people, but that's not what I wanted to do at that time. I already had a taste of this lifestyle of being a pro athlete that I was like, I cannot go back to something else. I need to have that flexibility, that freedom, that I want to be able to perform, I want to be able to produce something and be creative, right? One of my dreams early on was to make $5,000 with a speech. And I had never spoken in public before, so it terrified me. And I never made $5,000 before, so that terrified me. And what I did is I wrote it down and I framed it. Because we would do this in sports as well. We would like frame our goals.
Right. You put a date on it, right?
I would put a date on it and I would sign it as if I awarded it to myself. But I would frame it in a nice frame and I put it up on my mirror and create like a certificate of achievement. You know, Lewis Howes has just been awarded $5,000 for giving this prestigious speech, right? And I would look at it every single day. And that may seem weird or a little like woo-woo-y or, but for me, seeing it every single day and being so clear that this was my vision, again, whether I achieved it or not was not the purpose, but being intentional on a direction I wanted to go towards. And I said, okay, what are the action steps I need to take? I broke this down just like an athlete. What are the action steps I need to take? Right. I need to find a coach because I have no clue how to speak in front of people. I need to practice and I need to figure out how to get to this point. I started researching and I heard about Toastmasters and I went to 5 clubs in a week and I said, I gotta go find the one that is the scariest to me. And I went to one where a guy had like been on Oprah before and all these other professionals and speakers were getting $20,000 speeches and I was like, this terrifies me, I'm gonna go here. And I remember I walk in, I have this full arm cast on, a mangy t-shirt, board shorts probably, and sandals. I'm walking in, they're all in suits, professionals, like 30, 40, 50-year-olds. I'm this 24-year-old punk. And I say, hey guys, here's my dream. And I was terrified, but they were so supportive. They were so supportive and they welcomed me in and they said, we're gonna support you. Every week I would go and practice and show up. And every week I had a coach that would go over my speeches with me, these 5-minute speeches. And I remember the first 3 speeches I got up there and I had word for word written out what I was gonna say, my speech. And I would spend weeks on these 5-minute, like simple speeches. And I would stand in front of the podium, shaking, sweating before I even got up there. Just like the anticipation of speaking in front of 10 people terrified me. Right. Even though they were like friendly, they terrified me, right?
Sure.
And so I got up there with my cast and I read word for word behind the podium. And little by little, I was like, okay, this week I'm not gonna have the podium there. I'm gonna stand in front of the podium, right? So I get in front of the podium, but I'm still reading word for word. Then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have note cards. And then I'm gonna do no note cards. And eventually I did 10 speeches in about 10 months. And the last one I got a standing ovation. Wow. And after that moment, I got a $5,000 speaking gig offer as well because I was doing the work for what I needed to do to get there. Also, I was building credibility and expertise in another topic, which allowed me to get that. And it was just an incredible lesson for me to know that I can put a dream out there, I can put it up somewhere, and I can visualize it and I can take the action to make it happen, even if I'm terrified, even if I feel like it seemed impossible to happen in that time frame. But by putting it out there and asking for the support was big for me, and then taking really extreme action that terrified me is what allowed me to get it.
Right. All right, so how do you deal with plateaus?
It's a good question. I think, I relate it back to the sports as well and to my training because this is for me, and this probably resonates with you. When I'm working out and I feel like I've done the same workout for too long, and I feel like I'm not getting any gains, I just mix it up. Right now I have a product I've been selling for like over 1.5 years, and I feel like it's kind of hit its peak. So what I need to do is either rebrand it, figure out a new angle, and I'm also creating other products as well to add into the mix. So I'm just not allowing it to upset me. I just understand that like it's gonna hit a plateau. Everything's gonna hit a plateau. So being able to be flexible, I'm adding new team members in to create new creativity and have new ideas to see what I'm missing, and allowing myself to play and be flexible and create other products.
What do you build your sense of self-esteem around?
I would like to say the people that have come before me and my mentors and my family and my parents
But how would you build your self-esteem around them?
I build it around knowing how hard they worked for me. I mean, I really believe that, and so many people have helped me to, get to where I'm at. I just know it's taken thousands of people, whether they know it or not, to get me where I'm at. And I'm so grateful by that. And I'm so energized to be able to not let those people down. So for me, that energy, that inspiration of wanting to live a life of service really gives me that energy.
You end each of your episodes of the School of Greatness with a moment of gratitude. Is that where that comes from, or what's that?
I've just learned that being grateful is such a powerful thing, and it's hard to be angry or upset when you're living in gratitude. It's hard to be frustrated and mad or resentful or any negative energy when you're coming from a place of gratitude. But I'm not perfect. I go through mood swings. I have an ego that flares up sometimes. I have triggers. I have buttons that make me probably not the best human being at moments. And I just have to constantly remind myself to live in a place of gratitude and what am I grateful for.
You talk pretty openly about not being the perfect person, having things. You'll even talk about, like, here's a skill that I'm trying to get better at. I know you recently went through a breakup, and you really candid about what you thought went wrong and what you learned. Is that for you, or is that for the audience?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I opened up about a year ago about a topic of being sexually abused as a child by a man that I didn't know. And for 25 years, I didn't talk about it. No one knew this secret about me. And it left me living in a lot of anger and frustration and resentment and questioning and self-worthiness conversations. And it really owned me. This secret, this thing that happened owned me as opposed to me owning it and being responsible for it. And I remember I opened up to it, my family about it a couple years ago. And it was the scariest thing I'd ever done probably at the time, was sharing this thing that was so shameful for me. It was so shameful for me to have this secret, to know that I was raped by a man that I didn't know when I was a 5-year-old at a babysitter's house. And my mom, I didn't want my mom to know, to think, there's just so much shame I held on to for 25 years. You're really getting me to open up here. And when I did that, it was the most freeing thing I've ever done. Is sharing like my secret, sharing the things that I'm the most ashamed of, and letting other people know about them. And I remember this is what I asked. I asked my brother this when I told him, before I told him on the phone. I said, "Is there anything I could ever say or do?" Because I was really afraid to lose people loving me. So I said, "Is there anything I could ever say or do that would make you not love me?" And he said right away, with no hesitation, "Absolutely not. I don't care what you do, I'll always love you." And I think that was just my fear growing up. Like, what if people knew this? Would they stop loving me? Would they stop accepting me? Would they stop thinking of me in a certain light? It was so freeing to share and be vulnerable. When my whole life I was never vulnerable. I was like this cocky jock who never showed emotion or whatever. And when I did that and I told every one of my family members and I asked them the same question, is there anything I could ever do or say that would make you not love me? And they all said, "Absolutely not, we love you." So it gave me permission to be open and share. And I finally had the courage to do that. For 25 years, I didn't have the courage to do that until I was 30 years old. And then I said, you know what? I started telling my friends and opening up. Because I was like, what if my friends don't accept me for what's happened in my past? I opened up, they all accepted me. And for months and months and months, I thought about, should I open it up about this to my audience? Is that going to alienate them, or are they going to think of it as like a marketing thing, like me trying to get attention? So I didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm not going to do it, because I want it to be so authentic if I share anything. And then the more people I was telling it to one-on-one, they were like, I think you could really help heal a lot of people by you sharing this. Because not many men open up about this. A lot of women do, but not many men. And I opened up about it, and I remember just being like, I waited for it for like a month. I did an interview with a friend of mine who I felt could really support me sharing this information. And I held on to this episode for about a month before publishing it. And I remember thinking, I just got to do this and trust that it's going to help. Even if it helps one person heal and everyone else hates me for it, then I did my job. And I posted it at like 11:30 or something at night. And then I was like, I need to go to bed because this is probably going to be overwhelming. I woke up and I had hundreds of emails in my email box of men messaging me, opening up about what had happened to them. I mean, I couldn't believe my story was like a PG story compared to the stories that men emailed me about the rape and the sexual abuse. 1 in 6 men have gone through some type of sexual abuse in their life. And to hear those stories, what I realized is I gave them permission to be free of them, to be free of these stories and free of this pain and struggle. And they said, this is the first time I'm ever talking about this. And thank you for giving me permission to open up. The feeling I'm getting just by writing this is making me feel free, like I can let go. And I think that's a lot of what's in the way of people getting to the next level. In business, relationships, health, anything, is the emotional things that we hold on to. The shame, the resentment, the fear, the anger, whatever it is that we have, we all have our own stuff. My stuff may be, again, PG rated compared to a lot of people's, but for me it seems really hard. But it's how we are able to manage it and be free of it, I think, is what allows us to take things to the next level in life.
Man, that's incredible. And being able to, so it's incredible on 2 levels. One, what you said is obviously people look up to you, you're in a position, you have a voice. And in being the one to display the courage and to put yourself out there, obviously for people that look up to you, it gives them a similar courage, right? If Lewis did it, then I can do it. And it's amazing because it's so fundamental to the human condition to be somehow eroded internally by something you are convinced defines you and nobody else cares. You know what I mean? And not that they don't care, like they're truly apathetic, in that it doesn't diminish you in their eyes at all, like not in the slightest. They're not, that isn't what built value in their mind about you, and yet it so clouds your own vision of yourself. And you know, look, I get what you're saying. It's degrees, and some people have been through much worse things than I'm sure you, and you've been through worse things than other people in it. But yet we all end up getting tripped up, caught up by those emotions. And when you look at what holds people back, it's universally fear. And it may be fear of different things, maybe fear at different stages, but it really comes down to, are you able to accept that other people may have a diminished view of you if that thing gets out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really amazing, dude, that you're willing to put that out. And I think that's become a central part of your persona, and spending this kind of time with you today, I'm realizing it's just a central part of who you are.
Well, here's the thing, and I'm sure you've realized this, but when we are guarded or put on a persona, or we try to look perfect all the time, we get caught in perfection prison, and we are trapped by this perfectionism, this approach, which also holds us back from ever launching something, from ever putting something out there, putting our music, our art, because it needs to be perfect.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't create or put it out there because it's not ready. It's never ready for them. And I've just been like, I am going to be so vulnerable and open and honest with people moving forward. And it still scares me to say that. Like, I'm still not perfect, and I'm still scared, and sometimes I'm not 100% honest, but that's my intention, to be honest and vulnerable in a reasonable way, so that I see that I create a deeper sense of connection and trust, as opposed to having to look perfect all the time. And by doing that, I think we're able to connect with people. I mean, there's no way you've been able to build this company as big as you have and have thousands of employees without you being honest and creating connection with everyone here. There's no way that these people would have so much energy and passion for this brand and this company without you guys being honest, open, and connected to your vision, and connected to their vision as well.
That's really well said. So connecting to their vision is something that's really critical to me, and I very much responded to Brene Brown, and shout out to my sister for forcing me to read Brene Brown. I think I've mentioned her before, wrote a book on vulnerability in the workplace, and it's super counterintuitive, right? So first of all, you think you've got to be hard-driven, hard-nosed, and I like to think I am, and quite frankly, I know you are. Like, listening to your podcast, the thing I fucking love about you is you'll go in one breath, you'll go from talking about the guy who says that you can say bad, hateful words to water molecules and then freeze it, and those crystals will take an ugly form, or you can say beautiful, positive words to water and freeze it, and those crystals will have a beautiful form. And you're like, yeah, look, I know that's pseudoscience, but there's an intention to what he's saying. And you can exist in those two worlds where I don't have to buy into
Yeah.
the frou-frou stuff, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that
The
just,
woo-woo.
it doesn't add up, the woo-woo.
Yeah.
But yet I can find a nugget of wisdom anywhere. And that is something that you give to, and as a member of your audience, by the way, that's something that you give to me, right? You are truly a student in all things, and I think it's so telling that you call it the school of greatness, right? And while I referred to you as the dean, you never refer to yourself as the teacher. You're like, I'm the student. I am tricking these amazing people to come onto my show, which is exactly
for
the
selfish
method I follow,
reasons.
by the way.
Because I want to learn.
Exactly. I want to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing these people onto my show so that I can pick their brain. And it's being able to, okay, if you're going to make a statement like vulnerability serves you, you better be able to execute on that,
of course,
right? You
can't
better
just
be
talk
able
about
to
it.
build a big ass podcast. You better be able to write a book that's going out into print. You better be able to command tens of thousands of dollars to speak, and you do. So it's like there becomes this, it's like Michael Strahan. I don't know if you know Michael Strahan. Michael Strahan can go on live with Kelly and Michael and be goofy as hell because that dude was killing people on the football field, right? He outworked everybody. He was famous for just grinding it out, putting in the work. He played in the NFL for 15 years in a grueling position. His pinky literally looks like an alien object. It's like all bent and contorted. And you just hear this guy, and he was like, when I flip a switch in my mind, dude, I'm all in. I'm coming after you. I'm getting this shit done. But I can put on glow-in-the-dark glasses, right? And he can pull it off in a way that somebody else can't because they don't have that other side.
Right.
And you had Dale Partridge.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure it was Dale that said this, though. Forgive me. But you had somebody on your show who was talking about bringing real-world advice to relationships, and he teaches women. Help, who was it?
Oh, you're talking about Matthew Hussey.
Yes.
Yes. Get the guy. Anyone heard of him? Yeah, he's great.
Oh, dude, his
guy's
advice is legit. Look this kid up. School of Greatness episode with Matthew Hussey. Really, really interesting stuff. And he was saying when you find people that have combinations of almost contradictory elements, so he's
it's the guy who's nice and a little naughty.
Exactly.
That really pulls the women in.
Exactly.
And not just nice all the time, but has a different angle as well.
Right. And that's how I feel about you. You've got the obviously you can go deep on vulnerability, and you opened up to, I mean, I'm sure you guys felt it. I don't know if it conveys online, but like you created this vibe where we all felt like,
Hopefully it wasn't too deep for everyone.
No, not at all. It was honestly, man, that was a beautiful human expression, and I'm truly grateful for you to be willing to do that because I want to exist in a world where I don't always have to be Tom. Do you know what I mean? Like, they all certainly have an expectation of me as a certain person, right? I have to be, as the head of the company, they just think I'm going to be a certain way at all times.
So how do you handle that then with being open and vulnerable and you know, connecting with the vision of the company, but also showing that you're a real human being?
Authenticity is it. And I know there's some times where people are surprised by the things that I say, but it's like, it's all real. And
wait,
so,
really quick.
Yeah.
Do you guys like how authentic he is, or do you wish he would be more of a jerk?
Or do you wish that I was nicer and less authentic? Maybe that's the better question, right?
There was no response,
Right.
so yeah. No, is it great that he's authentic? Do you guys really? Yes. Okay, cool.
They're being paid.
And
to
they're not
say
just
that. Let's keep that in mind. But yeah, like, I think that's true of everybody, right? Everybody wants to be that honest reflection of who they really are and to really delve into all the weird things that they're passionate about.
Can I ask one more question?
Please.
Now, I'm curious, because I'm assuming he's very authentic and raw here. I'm just assuming since you said that. Is that true? Yeah? Okay. Now, since he is that way, do you guys feel like you have permission to be that way back? Yes. Or do you feel like you're on eggshells of what to say, or no? You feel like you can be yourself, 100% expressive? Interesting. Congratulations.
Wow.
That's great.
Well,
Congratulations.
Yeah, I want to believe that's true. I mean, this is obviously the world's most artificial environment where they have a gun to their head to say what I want to hear.
And there are a lot of cameras are on them, but it seems authentic.
Say something true. So I want to believe that's true. The reason, though, just why am I trying to do it? How about that? We'll accept that I tried to do that, whether it works or not. It is the most selfish thing that I could do. Because the majority of people in the workforce today are of the millennial generation you guys just took over. And the thing, but from generation to generation, there really are differences. And it's hilarious. Obviously, you can look back at Socrates, and they're saying the same thing about their kids that we say now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like all that holds. But there really are generational differences. And one of the things that I think is just abundantly true of the millennial generation is a real desire for engagement.
Yeah.
So the drug of choice of old was security, right?
Yeah.
I want job security. I want the gold watch when I retire. I want to work for one company. I want to work my way up. I want to know that I'm going to have that job forever.
Right.
And you saw people clocking 30 plus years at one company. Now the average time, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is like just over 4 years. That's an enormous change from like when our parents were going through the workforce. So I started asking myself, what's the reality? Like, what would it take to actually retain employees, and not just retain them, but really engage them? I had the good fortune of spending the first half of my life as an employee. And I was I had the slave's mentality. I kept my head down, I did as little work as possible, and I avoided punishment at all costs. And that was my life for well over a decade.
Wow.
And I thought that's how you did it, and you took advantage of your boss, and you got as much. I tried to build a company on my boss's back. I literally, when he wasn't looking, typing away, trying to start this other company. And that's just what made sense to me, because they were predatory towards me.
Right.
And I thought, well, if you're predatory towards me, then I feel really good being predatory back.
You don't feel bad about it.
Right, not at all. So I wanted to create an environment, hopefully, where people could really tap into their passion. And for me, it's like a marriage. It's all about selection. So just today, I've interviewed 4 people already today.
Really?
Today,
Wow.
which that's not atypical.
Wow.
And each one of those 4 people, my goal was one thing: get them to leave.
Yeah.
Get them to turn around and walk out the door. Because if this isn't right for you,
Get out
no
now.
worries.
Yeah.
But don't let me steal years of your life, right? That's like, don't let someone steal years of your life. Like, figure out, going back to your point, people don't know what they actually want. They say they want to be happy, whatever, but what makes you happy? And can this place really serve you in that way?
Sure. Yeah. That's great.
So
I love it. Well, it seems the results don't lie.
yeah, the company
One thing you
is.
cannot lie about is the results you've created, and you've created extraordinary results. So it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, I want to do something that you do on your show, and I'm going to flip the tables on you now. You always take a moment to recognize and appreciate people, acknowledge them. So I want to take a second to acknowledge what you've put out into the world, which is utterly incredible. You allow yourself to be vulnerable, but you don't accept bullshit. Like, you're actually pushing for something, and you're driven, and you've got ambition, but you show people that those two things aren't conflicting. And for me, that's the way forward. Like, as entrepreneurs, that is the future of entrepreneurship, because we live in a connection economy now. Social media has really changed things, and I think it's changed it in a beautiful way. It holds us accountable, right? I know that we're being watched at all times, which means you've got one of two choices: get really good at lying and lie all the time, or just be real, right? Now, it rubs some people the wrong way. I know I'm a very specific flavor. I'm kind of like black licorice, as they say. Some people love black licorice, but Bill Watterson, the guy that wrote Calvin and Hobbes, likened black licorice to writhing maggots. So I'm, well aware of that. But it's being authentic. You're showing people it can be an amazing business model, and I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, do me a favor. How do you define greatness?
Yeah, I knew you'd ask me this.
How could you not? You ask all your guests that
It's tough
question.
because it evolves for me a lot, and it changes with the moment I have. So I never have like a set answer, and that's why I'm always curious to ask people, because I'm always like, in the moment, what do you feel? So in the moment right now, greatness to me is being 100% your real self in every moment, and making the biggest impact on the maximum amount of people possible.
It's a pretty good definition.
Yeah.
Okay. If all of your podcasts went away, all of your writings disappeared, what are 3 truths if you were going to have to leave just that behind for your family? What 3 truths would you leave?
Oh man, this is funny. I should have known this was going to happen.
Yeah, for anybody that listens to this podcast, this is exactly what he does to people. So,
focus on love is number 1. Number 2, find your unique gift and maximize that to your highest potential. And number 3, serve others.
what is your unique gift as you see it?
What do you think it is?
For me, it's the ability to marry vulnerability and a searcher's mind with the drive ambition and relentlessness of an athlete?
I'll take it.
I'd say it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a highly tactical guy. Like, listening to your podcast, you have a lot of tactics. So it's interesting to me that the number one of your three is focus on love. Define love for me for a second, just so that, because I think I know what you mean.
I had a lot of love in me, and I always wanted to love people, but I allowed anger and resentment and frustration to control me in times, in moments where I got triggered. And so when I focus on love, I'm unstoppable. And when other people focus on love, we are unstoppable as a community, as a country, as a world. It's hard to mess up a relationship when you focus on a deeper sense of love. Maybe you fall out of love and it doesn't work, but if you say, you know what, I have a deeper sense of love for this person, and I'm going to focus on loving them as opposed to being resentful that our relationship is over, or that it ended, or that they screwed me over, I still appreciate and come from a place of love first.
How do you cultivate that? Because that's really powerful.
I mean, it took me, 32 years to really get to a place of really understanding it, and I still have a lifetime to really actually understand it. I haven't arrived, and I'll probably never arrive to where I want to be. And I think that's the beautiful thing about, my experience so far, and hopefully I have a long time to continue to learn lessons. And I'm going through a breakup right now, which is really hard for me to experience. But I'm also looking at what is the beauty that I can take away from this? What's the beauty, and how much more can I love myself and other people moving forward? And where did I miss out on love? Like, where did I mess up? Maybe I wasn't being loving. I get to really take a look at myself and say, where am I responsible of missing out on this opportunity? And how can I improve on being more loving moving forward in every area of my life? Being more understanding, more compassionate, more willing, all these things. That's what it is.
All right. Where can people find you online?
LewisHowes.com or School of Greatness Podcast on iTunes.
And when can they read the book?
October 27th.
Awesome. Man, I can't thank you enough for coming on this show.
Thank you.
I think you have shown people that being authentic, being vulnerable, and being driven is an incredibly powerful combination. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us.
Thank you very much.
That was
appreciate you.
Absolutely incredible.
Great questions. Thank you all. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
All right, guys, this is a weekly show, so be sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe right there, and you can check us out at InsideQuest.com. I cannot promise that all of our guests will drag you as deeply into the human soul as Lewis Howes, but we try to bring on people that are really going to help you push things forward. Man, I hope you're paying attention, because this show is changing my life, and I mean that sincerely. Moments like today where somebody cuts through to the soul, looks beyond the eyes into who you really are, is absolutely fascinating, and I hope that you're getting at least a portion of that on your side of the camera. Lewis, this has been phenomenal. Guys, we will see you next week. Until then, be legendary. Take care. Dude, that was badass.
Thank you.